Hello folks, my name is Josh Taylor and I'd like to welcome you to the 12th Annual Telling Tales Festival and our first ever virtual gathering. Whether you are a veteran fan who has been to the festival or whether this is your very first time joining us, we are so happy to see how stories connect us, no matter how far apart we live. Speaking of where we live, the Telling Tales Festival happens in a place where people have lived and told stories for thousands of years. It is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Neutral peoples. Today, it is home to the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Six Nations of the Grand River, and to many other Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We recognize our responsibility to learn about their rich history so that we can better understand our roles as caretakers, neighbors, and friends. With a good heart and mind, we honor the sacred Indigenous tradition of storytelling by presenting our program today. Miigwech, Nyawe, and thank you. Hello, everyone. This episode is called Scare Me, How to Write Scary Stuff. Today we are going to get tips about how to write hauntingly well from the masters. Joel Sutherland and Angela Misri will be here for a chat about how we can do this without busting a gut. Watch the whole show to hear how you can win a book from one of today's authors. I am absolutely crawling with excitement. Let's get right to it and meet our mentors of the macabre. Joel Sutherland is a librarian by day and ghost hunter by night, and recently created a Simpsons video that exploded all over the internet. He writes award-winning stories that will make your hair stand on end, and today he's here to share some tips with you. Angela Misri grew up terrifying her little sister by reading scary stories. Now that she is an adult, she writes them. The only thing stopping a total zombie apocalypse in Angela's latest book is a house cat with a taste for adventure. She is here to help you create stories that will frighten your readers.
Hi, I'm Angela Misri. I'm a children's author and a mystery writer.
And I'm Joel A. Sutherland, author of the Haunted Canada series.
Very cool. And we're going to be talking about scary stories. We're going to be talking a little bit about how you can write scary stories. We're going to start with Joel reading a bit from his latest book. Is your latest book? It is, right?
It is, yeah, absolutely. Just came out this August.
Awesome. So he's going to start there and talk a little bit about that. I'm going to read a little bit from Pickles versus the Zombies, which is my latest scary story. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the ways we write, pantsing versus planning, and you're going to hear more about that. And then we're going to open it up a bit and talk about what we love to read. So I'm going to start with Joel. Joel, give us a bit of a reading.
All right, so I am going to read from Haunted Canada 10, which is the latest book in the series. I can't believe we got to this milestone. Canada is a really scary place, and there's a lot of ghosts here, which is good for me in my line of work. And this one, like I said, just came out in August, so it is the newest book in the series and also the newest book I've had published. And I thought what would work really well for the reading today would to actually read the introduction from this book. And in it, you'll see I talk a little bit about where my love of scary stories comes from, which is what Angela and I are going to be discussing. So it kind of fits in perfectly. When I wrote Haunted Canada 4, my first foray into the series that Pat Hancock kicked off, I never imagined I'd someday be writing an introduction for the 10th volume. And yet, 6 years later, here we are. As I've researched, written, and edited this book, I've been in a perpetual state of mild shock, like waking up and realizing your dream was actually your reality. But despite the shock I feel at having reached this particular milestone, it shouldn't be a surprise to me or anyone who knows me that my life has led me here. I've always loved storytelling and have long had a particular fondness for tales filled to the brim with things that go bump in the night. Haunted Canada 4 wasn't the first time I profited from spitting a creepy yarn. That goes back farther in time, back to the summer between grades 5 and 6. I was at a sleepover with two friends, and as midnight approached, one of us, can you guess who, suggested we take turns telling scary stories. My friends did an admirable job telling genuinely creepy tales. So when it came to my turn, I knew I'd need to step things up a notch. The specifics of the story are lost in time. I'm relatively certain it probably involved a hitchhiker in a broken down car, or a bathroom mirror and a deadly curse, or a "this call is coming from within the house" style twist, or something. I spoke with an eerie voice. I jolted my audience with chilling sound effects, and I paused for dramatic effect whenever the tension mounted. It should have worked. It should have been cheesy and over the top. But when I finally reached the end and took a deep breath, one of my friends reached into his pocket, pulled out $1, and placed it in my hand. "What's this for?" I asked. "That," he said in a whisper, "is for telling the scariest story I have ever heard." I was hooked. I could scare people. I knew I'd found my calling. Which brings us to Haunted Canada 10. In the following pages, you'll find something to petrify every palate. Ghosts that lurk in bedroom closets and spirits that attack the living in broad daylight. Haunted houses, forts, hockey arenas, and abandoned asylums. Stories from the past and stories from the present. You'll even find a grinning head with no body. Will one of these stories be the scariest one you have ever heard? There's only one way to find out. Work up some courage, brace yourself, and turn the page. There have been 9 prior volumes in the series, so you should know by now what you're getting yourself into. And if this is your first taste of Haunted Canada, don't say I didn't warn you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh my
so that was
gosh.
actually like the first time I realized, wow, scaring people is fun, and they'll pay you too. I got $1, and I went to the convenience store and bought a whole bunch of gummy bears. It was a
Well,
great thing.
you know
I
what?
wanted
That's a
to
good win.
exactly right. It's a good win for everyone. I shared the gummy bears with my friends, so it was all good. We also, Angela and I, wanted to not just do our reading, but talk a little bit about where our story ideas come from, how we write. That talks a little bit, as I said, about some of the tactics I employ when writing, whether I'm writing nonfiction or fiction, because I've written a lot of scary novels for Scholastic Canada as well, like Summer's End. But one thing I want to do real quick, because I know time is short, is go through my latest series, Haunted. There's 4 books in the series so far. And just really briefly mention where I get some of these ideas from. Because other than, pausing for dramatic effect, using like jump scares and other tactics like that you can use in telling scary stories around a campfire. You can use them in your writing as well. One of the big things I always hear from kids who want to be writers is, where do you get your ideas from? And they're a little, having maybe sometimes trouble finding ideas of their own. But ideas are like the easiest thing to find, I find, in writing. Because ideas are everywhere. So really quick, in this series, The House Next Door, this is actually based on a real house in my neighborhood that's super creepy. Kill Screen is based on my love of video gaming. I wanted to write like a really creepy video game coming to life. And so that's where I was first inspired for this one. The third book was Night of the Living Dolls. This was actually largely inspired by a lot of my research and writing for Haunted Canada. One thing I learned very quickly is that kids love or hate creepy dolls. Very few people are in the middle. Yeah, very few people are neutral on the topic. And I've written about them 3 times in Haunted Canada.
Wow.
Real Canadian creepy, haunted, possessed dolls. And I knew, because of the reaction from those stories, that I would one day write a whole book about them. And then Feel the Screams was actually based on a time I went to a fall farm with my kids, and I kind of lost them for only about 4 or 5 seconds in the corn maze.
Enough.
Yeah, I couldn't see them for like 2 seconds. I freaked out being a new parent. They were totally fine, and a little, thinking I was, a bit of a lame dad for being so scared, but it gave me an idea too, that because I had this emotional, scared reaction, this big sense of fear, I knew there'd be a good story in there about some kids getting lost in a creepy corn maze. So ideas are everywhere, whether it's, something in your actual neighborhood, or just something you love to do, a passion you have, or something you've read about or researched, something that's really happened that you're inspired to write a fictional story about, or something that happens to you that elicits a huge reaction, whether it's fear or sadness or happiness or disgust or any of these things. If that's the sort of experience you have, it's probably going to be right for a good story. So that's in a nutshell where I get some of my ideas from.
I think you're right that people, and kids especially, worry that their stories won't be original, but they come from a place, right? Like all of our stories come from a place, our experiences. Don't be afraid to like expand on that. It's original because it's your take, right?
That's right. Mine things from your real world, your lived experiences or things you read about, and spin a new tale from that. Take it in your
It
own
will
direction.
be. It'll be original. Like, don't even worry about that.
Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
I'm going to talk about a concept called showing, not telling, which is something that I learned very early on when I started writing. That idea that you need to show people something rather than tell them. So show them that it's scary, as opposed to tell them it's time to be scared. So Pickles versus the Zombies, which is one of my books, is about a cat named Pickles. That's cat named Pickles, who goes searching for her pet, whose name is Connor. It's a human child. And there are zombies all over the place in Toronto, and she leaves her home to go find him because she can't find Connor one night. So in this specific scene, Pickles, she's the I in the story because this is told from her point of view. She's climbing down into the sewers with her best friend Ginger, who's an orange cat, and they're in the sewers and they're chasing a trail trying to find Connor. So I'm going to read a little bit from that part of the book. And keep in mind, we're talking about showing, not telling, so I'm going to talk about that when I'm done. Just a few more minutes, I said, through chattering teeth, glancing at the ladder manhole cover just ahead of us. We could see the pale sunlight drifting down to us through the holes in the iron covers that punctuated our subterranean journey. Surely we would escape this situation through them. I had to hope we would find Connor soon. Ginger sniffed. I wondered how many more manholes we would pass before he just left me here. Have you sniffed anything from your pet? He asked. Not since the stuffed horse, I admitted, allowing sarcasm to sharpen my tone. Though it's hard to discern any one smell down here, they're all so lovely. Did you hear that, Harold? Said a voice that made us jump. She sounds like she's insulting our hospitality. I couldn't see where the voice came from. It echoed all around us. Ginger jumped up and onto the ladder, raising himself up, so I followed, sitting tensely on a rung directly below him. My fur was damp, but still managed to stand straight up on end in reaction to that spooky voice coming out of the darkness. Who are you? He called out. Who are we? Replied the voice, sounding like many voices. What a riddle. What riddle? I asked, my hackles so far up my back that I must have looked like I'd been electrocuted. Capital idea! A riddle before you pass! The voice continued with a cackle. Ginger took another step up the rung, and I followed. This was bad juju. And that was saying something considering the zombies, the insulting eagles, the dying humans, and the sewer. Here's one. What can you swallow but also swallows you? The voice said, and then shushed its own echo. Creepy much? We kept moving up the rungs of the ladder, hoping to outrun the voice. I'm not sure, I said, my teeth chattering so hard I don't think I could have formed complex words. Any idea, Ginger? Darkness? Ginger tried, only a few rings from the manhole cover now. What we were going to do at the top, I had no idea. There was no way two cats could lift a manhole cover, but that was the next problem. We'll give you a hint, the voice cackled at us from below. Harold, a hint for our guests. Too late, I realized there were eyes all around us in this tunnel. They leapt as one, hundreds of rats dragging us into the watery answer below. So, I'm a little bit, yeah. So in this scene, which I think is pretty scary, I used a few different tricks to scare you without saying, hey, it's time to be scared. I used setting. The cats are in a dark sewer, which is not a great place for anybody, but everyone can imagine. I used the unknown. You have no idea who that voice is. You're just like, creepy. And I used reactions. So you can see how Ginger and Pickles are changing their reactions. They're getting more freaked out, which freaks you out just reading about it. And they start looking for a way out of the sewers, making you feel scared. So this is an example of showing, not telling. I'm not telling you to be scared, but I'm making you scared by paying attention to all of these things. So that's my example from Pickles versus the Zombies.
And the characters had, physical reactions in addition to emotional ones. Instead of just saying they felt scared, you're talking about their hackles being raised and the hair standing on end a bit, despite it being damp. So absolutely, that's a great way of showing instead of telling.
Up next, we have Jason Hatchey, AKA Hatchey the Mouthpiece, a world-class beatboxer. Get this, every sound in Hatchey's music comes from one instrument, his mouth.
Hi, my name is Hatchey the Mouthpiece. I'm a vocal percussionist, aka beatboxing, aka mouth music, aka please be quiet. Today I'm going to teach you a little bit of that, but first let's hear some. What? So an easy way to maybe do a basic beat like a is repeating boots and cats, boots and cats, and boots and cats. And now just pronounce what your mouth is doing and not what you're actually saying. So boots, boots, boots and cats, boots, boots and cats, boots, boots and cats, boots and cats, boots. And then do that for about a month, and then you'd be like pretty much what you're trying to do is mimic a drum kit or anything that you can dance to or walk to or just have a lot of fun while you're doing it. My name is Hatchey the Mouthpiece. Thank you very much for sharing.
So the last thing we were going to talk about was pantsing versus plotting. So do you want to give a definition of plotting and I can do pantsing?
Sure, absolutely. Plotting is basically when a writer takes a lot of time before you dive in and start writing the first word or the first sentence of the first page and outlines the story thoroughly. That's right there. Look at that. Look at all the sticky notes. That just makes me happy to see, Angela. Oh, I love it. Because I won't talk about pantsing. Obviously, I'll leave that to you. I'll say this. I used to be a pantser. I used to just dive in and start writing without a lot of pre-work. But recently, a few books ago, I switched. I decided I'd try really like going whole hog with the plotting. And I had a really thorough outline and I had a spreadsheet with all that automatically calculated word counts and page numbers and and I could plot in like exactly where, certain beats were supposed to take place, how many words until we had a new twist or a new character introduced. I did character interviews. So that's where you actually just have 20 questions that you ask your character and you write down the answer. So I had a really good understanding before I jumped in of who everyone was, what they were doing, what they wanted, and what was going to happen in the story right to the very end. And I used to think that would actually, doing that level of plotting would kill my creativity. That's why I like to just jump in and see where my creativity took me, which was kind of fun. But I like I said, I kind of thought, oh, is this going to just limit me in any way by knowing what's going to happen? But I found the opposite happen. It actually freed me because I didn't have to spend as much time when I was writing thinking about what logically should happen next in the story to get me to the end that I kind of had in mind. And so I was able then to spend more time just having fun with the writing and weaving in subplots and that often involved more fully fleshed out side characters other than just the main character, because I had done all this homework, right? So in a way, I actually found it very creative, maybe even more so in some ways than pantsing and just diving in. So it works.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because people often ask how you do that. So on each of these stickers, when I do plotting, I basically write what happens. What do you do?
So as I said, the key I had was the best tool I used was a spreadsheet. And I actually just Googled this and found it online. I forget the name of it now, but if anyone listening was to just simply Google novel outline Excel spreadsheet, I'm sure you'd find it. It was one of the top hits for me. And it was a free spreadsheet you could download that someone had created. And it was fantastic because it broke down a story into the classic story arc. And here, again, like I said, here are all the beats you want to hit as you go towards the end. And then there were fields where you could, on the far right, a column where you could type in what you wanted to happen. And at the very top, you typed in your ideal word length. So I said 75,000 words. And then it just did the math for me. It just said, okay, well, by 2,000 words, you want this to happen. And 3,000 words, this, and 4 and 5. And it just went through the whole novel like that after I had put in all my beats. And so, again, I had that open as I was writing. and it did the thinking. It did the hard work for me, you know. And I guess
Well, you
I
did the hard work.
I did it for myself because I did it, but it was there then doing the, you know, continuously doing the hard work. Well, I just kind of wrote and played and had fun with the words and the ways I could show instead of tell, and really make things bizarre and creepy and try and freak the reader out.
Now we're going to get spooky and crafty with Annie Weber.
Hello, my name is Annie Weber, and I'm an artist and educator here in Hamilton. Today, we're going to be learning how to make a bat like so. So let's get started. So I'm going to lay down the bat's body on this piece of cardboard. I'm going to draw the shape of the wings that I like. And then I'll connect them just so I know where to cut when I'm cutting. And then I'm going to attach them. So I like glue and tape. So I'm going to put down a little bit of glue in the middle, and I'm going to put down my toilet paper roll and hold it there for about 2 minutes. But I have the feeling you don't want to sit here and watch me for 2 minutes while I hold this toilet paper roll. So I'm going to tape it as well. I'm going to take a nice long piece, put it inside the toilet paper roll, and then up and around. So while I'm working on this, the glue will have time to dry. To make the ears, you want to push down on the top of the toilet paper roll. And I'm gonna paint a fun color underneath to make the top color stick a little bit better. I found these eyeball stickers pretty cool, right? So I'm gonna grab 2 of the same, and I'm gonna pop these on. And then when the paint has dried a little bit more, we'll put on some teeth, some fangs, with this secret weapon, my white pen. I love adding the teeth and the mouth because it really makes the bat come to life. Cute, right? Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you a very happy Halloween.
Those bats are the perfect decoration for a haunted house. Now, let's get back with Joel and Angela.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about pantsing, which is really, it's self-explanatory. It's going by the seat of your pants. And so most of my books have been written pantsing, just like writing and writing and writing and writing and getting to the end and keep going. And
by
with this,
longhand.
yeah, I do. I write longhand. I'm a crazy person. So, because then I have to like translate it into an actual Word document. Right. But what I find is with pantsing is it allows me to like enter the mind of whoever the point of view of the person is who's writing, who's the main character. And you just write and you write and write, and you don't worry about things like beats, and you don't worry about, is this chapter too long? You just keep going and you keep going. This works for me. It doesn't work for me when I write screenplays, which is what this is. When I write screenplays, I find that I need more formatting. I need to know how long the acts are, how many scenes there are, how many minutes people are on stage. So I use both, but I do find pantsing works for me for writing novels. So I think I won't speak for Joel, but I will say whatever works for you. It's something could work for you in one circumstance and not work for you in another. You could be pantsing through 20,000 words of your novel and you're like, oh, I really need to like plan this out at this point. And then you switch to this, like whatever works for you. There's no right way to do this.
That's absolutely true. I'm very wary of anyone that says this is the way you need to operate in order to be a successful writer. I think the best writing advice is that there is no one singular path. There is no one source of advice you should follow over any other. You find what works for you and you make it work. Everybody's got a different style, and what will work for one person won't work for another, and other people just do a mix of everything. So that's a great piece of advice.
Now is the moment you have all been waiting for. Pay attention to the chat stream, where we have announced the winners of the Twists and Turns Writing Contest. Congratulations! And wait to show off your writing chops. Speaking of chops, you get to show off again, and this time, the judges will be none other than Joel and Angela. They will pick the most spooktacular story, and the winner will receive a copy of each of their books. All you have to do is upload your story to the Telling Tales Creativity Club, and we'll announce the winner later this fall. Thanks for tuning in. Stay scary, folks. Thanks for joining us, and remember to visit our website for more events and to upload your artwork, your writing, your videos, and your ideas to the Telling Tales Creativity Club. Telling Tales is all about the joy of discovering how stories connect us. Tell us what you thought of this episode by filling out the survey on the Telling Tales website, and you could win a book from one of today's authors. See you again.